Ooh, it's time for a name quiz. I'm going to give you 20 names in English, and I want you to tell me if it's a male name or a female name. Okay? I want you to write down if you think it's a man's name or a woman's name, okay? So what do you think about this? Phyllis. Phyllis. Is that a man's name or a woman's name? Do you think it's important to know? Well, I think so. Very often, people comment on my YouTube channel, and they have a name like this. And I have no idea if it's a man's name or a woman's name. Okay, so I don't know who I'm talking to. Look, Anek Kop. Anek Kop. It's a very strange looking A. I have no idea if Anek Kop is a man or a woman, okay? And it's always a little bit awkward. I like to know, right? As people, we like to know who we're talking with, right? So I think this is important. Okay, so the first word, or the first name, I should say, is Chris. Chris. Do you think it's a male name, a female name, or could it be both? Okay, you can just write M or F or B for both. Okay, so the second one is Adrian. Adrian. What do you think? Third one is Joe. Joe. Man or woman? The fourth one is Gabriel. Gabriel. And the fifth one is Ava. Ava. Sixth one is Alex. Alex. Seventh is Rene. Rene. What do you think? The eighth one is Meghan. Meghan. Ninth is Claire. Claire. 10th is Eleanor. Eleanor. I think you could say Eleanor or Eleanor. I'm not sure if this is a long O or if it's just a short schwa sound. Eleanor, Eleanor. I'm not sure. I'll look it up. Daryl. Daryl. Caroline. Caroline. What do you think? So the 13th name is Kyle. Kyle. And Jade. Jade. And the 15th name is Jordan. Jordan. And Brooke. Brooke. And Amber. Amber. Sydney. Sydney. And Dawn. Dawn. Okay, I think that's it. Or do we have one more? Oh, no, that's it. Yeah, the first one was Phyllis. Okay, so Phyllis is a woman's name. Okay, now I'm going to tell you all the answers, so you better be ready. Okay, Phyllis is always a woman's name. Did you know that? Chris could be either a woman or a man. In my experience, it's probably a little bit more likely to be a man, but I've also met people who have the name Chris who are women. Okay, so it could be both. Now, Adrian, if it's spelt like this, in my experience, it's a man, but if it's spelt like this, then it's a woman. Okay, they're pronounced exactly the same. Adrian, Adrian. Okay? Joe. Now, this is a very common name. And again, in my experience, if it's spelled this way, it's a woman's name. And if it's spelled like this, it's a man's name. This is probably short for Joanna. And his full name might be Joseph. Okay? Gabriel. Now, in my experience, this is always a man's name. Now, Gabriela would always be a woman's name. Okay? So sometimes men's names and women's names are very similar, but the spelling is a little bit different, and that's what decides if it's a man or a woman. Okay, so spelling is very important. Now, Ava is always a woman's name. And Alex could be a woman or a man. In my experience, it's more likely to be a man, but I've also met women whose names are Alex. Okay, now Rene. If it's spelled with one E at the end, it's a man's name, and if it's spelled with two E's, then it's a woman's name. Okay? Meghan. Now, Meghan is always a woman's name. And Claire is also always a woman's name. Eleanor is always a woman's name. Daryl, in my experience, is always a guy's name. Now, the reason I keep saying in my experience, because anybody could be named anything, right? People sometimes name their kids really weird names like Winter or Summer or Rain. Is Rain a man's name or a woman's name? I have no idea. Okay, that's why experience is so important. And I have a lot of experience in English, so I'm trying to share my experience with you. But you know what? There could be women who are named Daryl. I don't know. But in my experience, it's always a man's name. Caroline. Now, that's always a woman's name. Okay. Kyle, again, in my experience, is always a man's name. And Jade is always a woman's name. Now, Jordan could be both. I've met a few women named Jordan, and I've met a few men named Jordan. In my experience, it's more common to be a man's name, but could also be a woman's name too. Okay, Brooke, that's always a woman's name in my experience. Amber is always a woman's name. Sydney, now, this isn't a very common name. I don't think I've met anybody named Sydney, but there's a really famous hockey player named Sidney Crosby, okay, and he's a man. So, I don't know, it might be more a man's name, but I don't know. If you know, if I'm wrong on some of these, let me know, because I might be wrong. But in my experience, I'm just sharing my experiences with you. Okay, the only person I know named Sydney is Sidney Crosby, and he's a guy. But I think it could be both. Okay, now Dawn is always a woman's name, but if it's spelled like this, Dawn, that's short for Donald, like Donald Trump. Okay, so Dawn this way and Dawn that way is a woman and a man. It's pronounced exactly the same. Dawn and Dawn. Okay, I want to know, how many did you get right? And I also want to know, are names in your language as confusing as they are in English? I mean, a lot of these names could be either a man or a woman, and that can be pretty confusing. Okay, even for native English speakers, that's confusing. So I feel sorry for you having to learn all of these names, but it's important, right? We like to know who we're talking to, if we're talking to a man or a woman. Okay, so let me know, are names a problem in your language like they are in English? Let me know down there in the comments, and I'll see you over in the next episode of Mad English TV. Take care.